Is she the person really who pushed him out of this race?
So let me be precise that he was not a distraction and that people would not have voted Republican because of him. The issue with Joe Biden was turnout, and specifically among younger women, and in some cases voters of color, that the excitement wasn't there, and that Trump was dominating the press coverage, and that Biden was having to explain himself to voters that normally vote Democratic. And that was the issue. So I thought at that time that Donald Trump was going to be the next president against Joe Biden because he was going to get an incredible turnout that Biden would not get. Every Trump supporter would be a Trump voter, and that was not the case for Joe Biden. And the whole reason why Vice President Harris has surged in the polls is because of young women, women under the age of 35. And they've come back into this election. They're excited about it. They're showing up at Harris's rallies, and they're jazzed about it. And another group that started to move are people of color, younger voters in particular, because they see in her someone they can relate to.
Well, and Frank, we already are seeing a dramatic change in polling from what was the Joe Biden Democratic ticket to now the Harris one, whether it's New York Times Siena with the 4-point lead across all of the blue wall states from this weekend, or other polls, including ours here at Bloomberg with Morning Consult, that do suggest that she is at the very least performing much better than Joe Biden 3 weeks into her campaign. But things that burn hot, Frank, can also burn really fast. When you look at a surge in polling like this, I'm not sure if you have a historical precedent you can think back of to compare it to, but do they typically burn out?
They can. A great example of this was when Mondale was replaced, the late Senator Paul Wellstone, in a Senate race in Minnesota. And Mondale immediately assumed a tremendous lead, which did not, and he actually replaced the Democratic nominee, and that lead blew apart. The numbers that I'm watching right now, and you reported it just before, is that Harris now has a 1-point advantage over Trump on the economy. That is an oh my God, I'm trying to find a way not to get you in trouble. That's an oh my God statistic. Of all the things that we've been talking about in polling, and obviously Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that's what really matters because they're the swing states. The idea that Harris has now pulled even with Trump on the economy has got to have sent shockwaves, not just through the Trump campaign, but through Republicans up and down the ticket, because that's where Trump's advantage was so strong. The idea that he was best able to handle inflation, and the idea that when you focused about affordability, and in particular, housing, healthcare, food, and fuel, these are the items that Americans care about most, and Trump had such an advantage. And now that's gone.
Yeah.
That changes this race and may change it for good.
Well, Frank, I want to explore the possible fragility of this lead that Kamala Harris has. To jump off Kailey's question here, a couple things are going to happen in the next week. Kamala Harris is going to detail, she says, her economic policy proposals, and then we're going to have a convention in Chicago. While that could be great fanfare, lots of music and excitement, a big coronation, the Washington Post is reporting now that organizers are still planning to bring tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters to Chicago. When you start layering details on policy proposals, the optics of the protesters, what does that do to the honeymoon?
I think it's going to be significant because unlike Trump's speech on Thursday night, a brilliant 45-minute speech about bringing the country together that was completely destroyed by the other 45 minutes of Trump doing what Trump always does, which is the attacks that the public has turned against him over. She's much more disciplined. She's much more willing to stick to the teleprompter, much more willing to deliver the message of the campaign. That's point number one. Point number two is that these conventions usually have a significant impact. For Trump's, it only helped him 1%, maybe 1.5%. In the past, these conventions have had a 10, 12, 15-point bounce. She's already had that bounce, and now she gets the reinforcement of the convention. The truth is, the only date that really matters right now is September 10th. So circle your calendars, because on that day, Donald Trump sits on one side of the screen. Kamala Harris sits on the other side. And when they face each other side by side, that will be the day and the only day that Donald Trump can regain this momentum.
Well, it does seem that he's trying to get back hold of it, at the very least, the attention, Frank. He's going to be on X with Elon Musk tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. You were just talking about him straying off message at the RNC and potentially losing a moment, if not losing momentum along with that. Frank, what does he need to avoid doing tonight?
He will be encouraged by Musk to be critical, and that's what he is. We are a different electorate than we were in 2016. Our issues are different. Our priorities are different. We look different as a country. And to try to run the same campaign where he needled and needled and needled Hillary Clinton, and then it has credibility. Now, make no mistake, the vice president has switched her positions on a number of issues. She has, when she was debating in 2019, she didn't even make it to the first vote in 2020 because voters did not appreciate her presentation. But this is 4 years from them, and she's not the same candidate either. And that the same techniques and the same tactics that worked in 2020 will not work right now. And I really want to emphasize the economic component of this and immigration, because immigration is not just about the border. It's also about crime, safety, and security. If he doesn't keep the lead on those two issues, inflation and immigration, then he's simply going to be unsuccessful. And because she's bringing out younger women who tend to vote Democrat over Republican by a 20-point gap, this has an impact on the Senate races and the House races. I'm going to say this for the first time. It is now conceivable, not necessarily likely, but conceivable, that Democrats could win the White House, the Senate, and the House based on where things are headed right now. And that means for everyone watching here, a completely different tax policy, completely different regulatory environment, completely different on every possible issue that your viewers care about. Yeah. If the Democrats should win it all, and it is conceivable based on the voter pool, we're going to have a very different country 4 years from now.